Good morning, Facebook Live. This is Robin Kirby-Gatto. Welcome to today. Oh my goodness, it is just flying by. Can you believe how this is flying by? It's the 21st of July. We're getting closer and closer to August. Oh my goodness, before we turn around, it'll be here. And so today we're going to do Walking with Wisdom. And you're going to be so informed, educated. And I know my message is redundant because I keep saying it, but God has it in me to say because it's necessary. Just like Jesus stopped in Samaria at Jacob's well to see the Samaritan woman because it was necessary. God has me bringing the same message because it's necessary. Amen. And I see people signing on. I cannot see your names. Let me get my glasses. Hey, Sharon. God bless you. Thank you for joining in. I see you signed on. Thank you for being here. And all of you who are joining in. And so today, again, God is going to emphasize. Let me see who this is. Monica, God bless you. Thank you for joining in. Sue Gailey, God bless you. Thank you for joining in. And so God is going to emphasize, I'm going to stand over here. God is going to emphasize emergency room. Emergency room, emergency room, emergency room. Okay, about 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, I told you on a Facebook Live that Rich and I, when we go upstairs at the gym, we do downstairs weights, free weights, and then some of the machines are upstairs in our gym. And so we do upstairs as well. And right in front of one of the weight machines is the word power and also an emergency exit. And so God gave me the saying, I put a POW to get out of the emergency room. Take the emergency exit. Get out of the emergency room. And this was about 3 weeks ago that God told me this, okay? And I've got to tell you all the things that have happened since then because I haven't spoken about it on Facebook or Facebook Live. And the reason is because it's for now, okay? Sometimes I just don't post things for a reason because God wants to wait till later because it has more impact. And so 3 weeks ago, I brought to you on Walking with Wisdom about POW, putting a POW in the emergency, that we're constantly in a state of emergency. And it's so funny because we're watching the Secret Benedict Society Club, the Benedict Society Secret Club on Disney. And it is a book that has been out. Matthew read it when he was younger. And it's about this state of emergency. And it's funny because it actually came on right as I was getting this concept from God about 3.5 to 4 weeks ago. And so everything in the land is in a state of emergency. Does it sound familiar? That's what the enemy is trying to create in this hour, that everything is an emergency. Why? Because we have to stress out. He wants to keep us in a chronic stress state, which I get into in detail in God's Firewall School of the Prophet, Session 4, The Spirit of Knowledge, Chapter 8, in the stress response. And I've been an expert witness in court last year about the stress response in a court case, to be an expert witness. But this is the thing that I want to share with you, because that state of emergency is the fear of the enemy operative within our members, and we have to resist that fear. And so those of you who know me know that my dad went in for an open heart surgery 3 weeks ago this Thursday. And the surgery was very intense. It was not one open heart surgery, it was 2. And that's why it was so critical, because he had both mitral valve replacement and a triple bypass. Just one of those is massive. And you have to realize that his body was kept at 34 degrees for 4 hours. So, I mean, there was a lot of things in play. And he was recuperating. And so the enemy came against me that weekend, just a couple days later, and he was trying to bring this emergency crisis through someone who was manifested against me. I'm talking about manifested, a demon's voice coming out of them, okay? And it was trying to traumatize me, and I wouldn't let it. And I was guarding the peace of my mother and myself and my father, and guarding the peace that was at the hospital, and just guarding the whole situation, okay? Because the enemy was trying to create emergency, all right? Well, that didn't prosper, and I overcame about Sunday evening. It took me probably about 36 hours to overcome that. Then come Tuesday, the enemy attacked my family and made us think that my dad was passing away. I'm telling you, it was an emergency. Now I knew in my heart that wasn't going to happen, because God had given me life all weekend. He had talked to me about life. Just excuse me. So I thought that my dad was passing last Tuesday. The Tuesday before. No, last Tuesday. No, the Tuesday before, sorry. Tuesday before. And so I am running like crazy with my hazards on to the hospital. It was an emergency. But the devil is a liar. And he wasn't passing away. He was living. He was just going through the process of healing. Okay. And then after that, just a few days later, I'm in the hospital visiting my dad, and I have my youngest son, Matthew. Okay, I'm just going to show you about these emergencies. And I'm telling you that God warned us ahead of time so we would punch our way outside of the emergency. And so I'm in the hospital just 3 days after we think my dad was going to pass. We gotten over that trauma, that emergency, gotten to shalom, peace, and I'm in the hospital with my youngest son, Matthew. I'm at ICU. Here's my dad in the bed on the left side of me. Here's my son on the right side of me visiting my dad. And the next thing I hear is a pow. And Matthew had fallen and was hitting his head. And I thought he was seizing. And so I'm in the intensive care unit. My dad is in this bed. Matthew's fallen. He can't get his head up, and it bangs a couple times. It bangs, a few times. Thank good it was veneer flooring and it was padded underneath. They know how to do it, right? And so the nurses are all coming in the nurses unit, and they're coming to the ICU room of my father, except they're coming for my son, okay? And I had never seen this before, and y'all that know me know that my son, his dad is a doctor, thank God, and he's one of the most incredible doctors that I do know. He is so amazing as a doctor. And so I contacted his dad. They were saying, you need to take your son to the emergency room. There it was. Take him to the emergency room. And so I didn't take him to the emergency room. I said, no, let me contact his dad. And I contacted his dad, and his dad said he had the vagal response, which is the sight of blood. And Matthew just happened to look while they were drawing blood out of the tube that was already in my dad's arm. And the sight of that blood initiated the vagal response, which is the vagus nerve, and he fainted. And he was trying to get up, and he couldn't get up, and his head would go back against the floor. And so I had to deal with that crisis and monitoring if Matthew had a condition, its mildness, monitoring that and keeping my eyes on that. And at the same time, regretting that I ever took my son to the hospital, because had I not taken him to the hospital, he wouldn't have had that response. But I didn't know that he was going to have that response, and he didn't know he was going to have that response because he didn't know that he would faint at the sight of blood. But also the enemy wanted to get me into regret about the fact that maybe I could have avoided this emergency. Now I'm getting to a point. Now hold on. Okay, and if that wasn't enough, I didn't tell you this, but last week I was at the park, and there was a man that came to the park that made me feel uncomfortable. So I wanted to get away. I wasn't running, but at the same time, I wasn't paying attention as I was going up these steep steps from the 1920s in that park. And I ended up falling and catching myself and breaking my fall by the arm things, by the handrails. I generally don't like touching them because I don't know what all is on those handrails. So that's why I generally don't hold those, but you know, I'll hold it now. And out of 5 years of living here, that's the first time I ever fell. And my leg got severely injured, which is why I don't walk as fast this last week. I walk pretty slow. And my leg, Rich gets home and he looks at my leg and he's like, what happened to you? Do we need to take you to the emergency room? Do you need to see the doctor? Because my whole shin, my right shin is just bruised, bleeding from under my knee all the way down to my foot. Because it's all, scratches are all over my shin, my foot. And I said, no, Rich. And I just had this peace. I had this shalom. And I just said, no, everything's going to be all right. Everything is going to be all right. And I took appropriate measures in cleaning the wound care, having been in first aid, having been lifeguard, having been a medical social worker. I know about wound care. And so I took care of the wound and, of course, still had to treat it even several days later with an ice pack because it's so swollen. And that leg is swollen from my ankle all the way up to my knee. But I'm getting to a point, and of course I was like, man, I wish I would have never fallen. I wish I would have been more careful because I'm always getting onto Rich. Always getting onto Rich. Having been in geriatrics, worked in nursing homes, worked in hospitals and independent living facilities. I know that one fall as you get older can totally break you, literally. And so I was like, oh my goodness, you know, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But this is my point. This is my point, okay? The enemy is trying to keep people in a state of emergency. And what I've just described to you is indicative, representative of the news in the atmosphere, okay? Of the anxiety, of the panic, of the fear. And I'm telling you, saints of God, you have to be careful what you're listening to in order that you're not given over to fear and that you use wisdom. You don't walk unthoughtful, thoughtless, not using prudence, and taking care of matters that need to be taken care of, like me seeing to Matthew's head injury, and also taking care of my own injury. But this is the thing. The enemy wants to magnify it. He wants to magnify circumstances that are happening to you right now. Now, I know if I've had 3 emergencies in the last 2 weeks, like literal emergencies, I know that some of you are having the same thing. And again, God gave me that power, Power, 3 weeks ago when I came on Facebook Live, Walking with Wisdom, and he said to pow your way, the power of the word, pow your way out of the emergency room. And so I want to say this, if you're confused right now, if you're in fear, that is a symptom that your mind and body are in a state of emergency. And God is telling you, you've got to get the power of the word and get out of that emergency. Because even this past weekend, the enemy came against me in fear about staph infection, because some of you know that my oldest son, Christopher, almost died at 14 and had to have 2 operations and was in the hospital for 2 weeks and had an IV going straight to his heart and was on home health for 2.5 months. And we almost lost him. And it's because of a staph infection. And so the enemy was just coming at me, Robin, you're going to get a staph infection. You're going to be in the hospital. Something's going to happen with your leg. And I'm like, no, Satan. Robin, Matthew's head is messed up. Robin, Satan, no. My God is our healer. My God is the miraculous He is able. He is sufficient. Do you hear me, saints? I'm telling you, any area in your body where there has been, and let me just show you this because this is cool. I took a picture of it yesterday, but it's still here. Look at that. Can you see that? Isn't that cool? It's like a pond. Let me get a better picture. It's a pond in between roots. Isn't that cool? And when you have good roots, you become a well. You become a well of living waters that in the times of flood, in the time of chaos, instead of it working against you, just like that tree's roots that came together and created a pond, the roots in you that are so deep can get so large and swell up and even be on top of the soil, just like that tree that we saw that's over hundreds of years old. And it can create a space for a pond. So saints, you have got to have the power of the word to get out of the emergency in this hour. Again, watch what you're giving your ears and your eyes to. Watch what you're reading, watch what you're watching, watch what you're listening to, okay, saints of God? So get the word of power and get out of the emergency room. God bless you. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.